Welcome to another chapter of our Marketplace Core Features for Seller Dashboards webinar. Today we'll be going over product optimization. Let's get to it.
I know one of the other key aspects of this is optimizing things and really getting into some of the nuances around this. And this is really specific based on your niche, can be based on the product type. There are a lot of things that you may want to change dynamically and have the ability to do so within different categories or subcategories or product types to be able to feature those properly. Just curious what your initial thoughts are on this and some of the core tenets that you think of with this area.
Yeah. And the way I like to think about it, one of the things that's unique with our platform is that we allow within a single product catalog, we allow different templates. Why would we do that? Well, if I'm going to buy an alternator replacement for my 69 Camaro, I know what that page should look like. I know the information that I want on the page. But if I'm going to buy a $2.5 million Ferrari GTO 3, GTB4 cam, I would expect that experience to be different, right? If I'm going to a page that's selling a yacht, I would expect that to be very different than an alternator, right? I mean, they're not even in the same planet, but yet in these marketplaces, especially on some of the auction sites that we do, right? I mean, you've got $1 million pieces of art, and then you've got, $3 Pokemon cards, and they're all in the same marketplace. But those types of experiences and those different items that are being sold, items and services, are very, very different. And so what is that experience? How do I optimize? And what is optimization? Well, I've put a few videos up on our channel about optimization, especially when it comes around the data, the attributes, the meta, the graphics, the proper sizing of the graphics, how to compress the graphics. How do you want the graphics to look so they look really good, they look world-class without taking a ton of effort on each of your products? How do I optimize for SEO? How do I try to get Google to rank it so when people are looking for something, they find my product on this particular marketplace? Can I optimize my content as a seller on your marketplace to help me drive traffic when I don't own the platform? And the answer is absolutely yes. On-page optimization is big. You may not be able to control some key fields, but you certainly can control the content. So the way the content is, potentially the keyword research that you might do to write the content properly to make sure your content stands out over and above not only other vendors selling on that same platform against you competitively, but against other platforms that might be selling your item too. The layout of your content, making sure the pages look good and the experience is good. So optimizing the data, normalizing the data, optimizing the graphics, compressing the graphics, making sure things load faster, even though you may not fully control the platform. Really super important for both you owning the platform, because Google penalizes you on page load speed. And I definitely want you to cover some of that, right, Chris? So sometimes the optimization of the product isn't the seller, and us making sure the template helps them optimize and have the right data, the right pictures, and the right sizes, which it could be, but it might also be working with the vendor to make sure you're optimizing the templates and the page load speed so that they can be properly indexed and everything else, right?
That's right. And there's so many interesting things you just brought up there. So just to start with on the technical side briefly, and I'll keep this pretty high level. The main thing here is that as we talk about in a lot of our discussions with the marketplace, it really should be as automated as possible. And so there should be sort of this strong opinionated stance that the marketplace has on its own of basically optimizing, like you said, images and page load speed. And so the platform itself should really take care of this. And this should be an opportunity for your internal team that's working on your marketplace, and really just something that's foundational with your marketplace software, that it is focused on performance. And that's just a fundamental. If you look at any data research on, UI, UX and conversion rate optimization, it's not just Google, it's also the actual user, especially on a mobile device, and any delays have exponential, reduction in conversion. And I preach to the preacher, of course. So that is foundational. There are so many things that you can do here. It's possible to really easily cache the content. A lot of developers, and I am a developer by trade, so I know this. we tend to overcomplicate things. And like at the end of the day, the search engine and the user, they're just looking for the information that they're looking for. They don't need all this database stuff and all of these 27 calls that are happening and all this complexity. They're just looking for the one thing, and they just need it to load really fast. That's it. Can we please just do that? And like at the end of the day, that's what the business needs and the user needs. And so you have to sort of marry and be looking and sort of be skeptical at all times that this is going to sort of get out of hand if you don't watch it. But sort of marry this sort of technical prowess with just the simplicity of execution. And for me, what I like to look for is, can we cache the content so it's not calling the database at all, really? You know, there may be little parts of the page that are hitting the database, but basically everything that a user, you have a lot of volume and a lot of, you know, traffic on, that should really be cached. And if some part of it's changing dynamically, that gets updated sort of asynchronously, or, you know, after the data loads essentially. But really, it shouldn't be something that's holding the user back when they're loading, and it should be very performant for the search engine. So what does this mean practically? Well, if you cache everything and store it so that it's getting updated, but it's not getting, you know, an immediate call whenever somebody goes to the page, the data hasn't typically changed. You know, maybe then we update the inventory and the pricing and the lead time dynamically after the page finishes loading. Well, you can go from a couple seconds load time down to a couple hundred milliseconds. And that is a massive improvement in just customer sat and performance improvement. Now, like you were saying, Ron, the other big thing that I want to hit on here is the layout and making it dynamic. One of the beautiful things about a marketplace is at its core, you can almost see it as like a crowdsourcing platform. You're going to be getting feedback and input from your sellers and your buyers constantly. Some of them will be quite opinionated, and they can really dramatically improve the delivery that you bring to your marketplace. At the end of the day, you're in the service of your buyers and sellers, and you're building a sort of meeting point, a marketplace for them to come together. And so foundationally, we want to encourage you to be looking at ways where you can get this input and see it as a crowdsourcing opportunity, and really be able to collaborate with the buyers and sellers over time to iteratively build toward customizations and nuances that they can select. You know, I would say at the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to force people to do things that don't make sense, but they should be able to select them. And like you were talking about with the Ferrari versus the alternator example, I think is a great example. You probably, with a car, you probably want to have a specific template for that people need to go with by default. And with an alternator, it's probably a much simpler template. And that's just the reality. So these areas where there should be a strong opinion, you do need to apply that opinion and enforce it. And that's just the reality of keeping your marketplace consistent. Making it a consistent experience for your user is absolutely important, so they know where to look for things and how to find them on the page. As simple as it sounds, they need to be able to have that consistency is the word throughout the process. The other big thing is, like, what are they looking for on other sites that they're seeing? With an alternator, you're looking for certain things. With a Ferrari, you're looking for certain attributes and details. And we need to be able to optimize around this for the users so that when they go to your marketplace, they need to be able to see what they are looking for without having to think. In particular, we don't want to tax their subconscious CPU at all. We just want it to be like, oh, here's the data, and I don't have to think. This is great. Click. And one of the best ways to sort of get at this is to have a feedback loop and to have a really powerful system that can be adaptive, but have a feedback loop so that we can be, you know, constantly assessing and evaluating the actual performance against that set of goals. So, you know, we want the attributes that someone's looking for to show up. Example, like if we're selling cars and we're on a cars page, we need to be showing things like what's the horsepower? You know, is it 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive? Is it automatic or a standard transmission? Things like that. If we're looking at an alternator, it's totally different. You know, and apologies because I don't know all the specs that we would want to look for, but you know, different things about the size, the type of vehicle that it might work with, maybe the ability to produce power and energy from from the alternate, things like that. Dimensionality, basic things that we're going to, sorry if you're crying inside, Ron.
It's like me talking about C# and Python.
But the bottom line here, yeah. But the bottom line is that, and feel free to jump in on the details. The bottom line is that they're very different, and the user expects that. And it's really important that we nail it on that. And that is very easy to talk about, not necessarily easy to do. And a part of that, of course, is your data. And we sort of talked about that earlier. The other part of it is your platform, and your platform being flexible enough to handle that data and present it concisely and be on point with these different categories.
Thanks for watching an episode of our Marketplace webinar chapter series. Join Chris and Ron in our next video where they will cover inventory management. See you there.